5 home selling tips your real estate agent doesn't know. Hi, I'm Phil Pustiowski with Freedom Mentor. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I am a coach. I am a mentor to some of the most successful real estate investors in this country at this point. My book just hit #1 on Amazon for real estate investing subjects. So a lot of great things going on in our world, and you can learn a lot more about us by either going to my website, freedommentor.com, or watching some more videos on this channel. And in this video, I want to break down for you some tips, some secrets, if you will, that very few real estate agents know anything about. Very few people know anything about. They're very simple, very easy to apply, and they can have a huge impact on how much you sell a property for. I mean, these tips I'm about to share with you could be worth thousands of dollars to you, and they're pretty simple, pretty easy. What I think is so incredibly fascinating, above all, is that we're in the information age. So you would think that everybody would know about what I'm about to share with you, but very few do. So without further ado, let me dive into this. First off, when you are selling a property, typically you are going to list it on the MLS, right? MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service. You can learn more about the MLS, other videos I have on the subject. And usually when a real estate agent adds a property to their local MLS system, it then usually shows up on other websites such as Trulia, Zillow, Google. You've seen these online. And you've also probably seen the statistics that most home buyers, more than 90%, find their home online. So the listing, that which the customer sees before they decide whether or not to go look at the property or to have their agent go look at the property, that listing is pretty important, isn't it? And so for most people, they understand the value of good pictures, right? So you have to have the pictures that make the property look nice and look desirable. And there's also little details such as where you put in your bedrooms and your bathrooms and that sort of thing. But in every listing, have you ever noticed that there's always a little paragraph, a listing remarks, a description? That's usually a free-form text box that people can type in whatever. Have you ever noticed that it's typically the real estate agent that writes that? Why is that? Well, it's because the real estate agent is the one in charge of filling out that MLS listing so they can add the listing to the system. And I guess it's assumed that the real estate agent is the most qualified to be able to fill out that description. And the other place where you see these descriptions would be on something like Craigslist. But what I have discovered through a lot of research, I do a lot of research on this entire subject of real estate and real estate investing, is a study was done in the Dallas-Fort Worth area over a 3-year period. I am so thankful the study was done, by the way. And in the box just below this video, you can click a link that will take you to a blog post where I give the link to the full study. So this video is just going to be a short, brief overview of some of the more powerful lessons from that study. But this study, it tracked what words were written in that listing description, and then consequently what happened as far as sales price and days on market, which are both very important, right? If you're trying to sell a property, you want to sell it for the least amount of days on market, so the shortest time period, and you want to sell it for the most amount of money, right? And this is typically the case. By the way, the lessons you're going to learn here are going to be more for if you're selling to a retail buyer, someone who's going to move into the property. And oftentimes, as investors, we sometimes like to flip or wholesale properties to other investors. But hopefully you'll get to a point in your career where you sell to the end consumer, the ultimate buyer, which is the retail buyer, because they will pay the most money for properties. And so oftentimes these days, that's who I'm selling to. I'm selling to the ultimate consumer because they will pay me more money. Okay, so this video is going to apply whether you're an investor or you just own one home and you want to sell your home. And I've been building this up, right? So that, you know, it's at boiling point right now. Like, what are these 5 tips, Phil? Okay, here we go. The listing description. That's usually 3 to 4 sentences, right? Well, this study that was done over a 3-year period discovered some fascinating details. these are some phrases, some common words that agents will put into a listing with full intent in order to help the sale, in order to sell it faster or maybe for more money, but it actually can hurt things. Watch this. Here we go. Number 1. Motivated seller. In other videos, you may hear me talk about finding these people. Putting that phrase in the listing description proved a lower sales price and a longer time on market from this study. Simply adding these 2 words didn't help the situation, it hurt the situation. Pretty fascinating, huh? So what's the lesson? Don't put that in the listing. There's no benefit to it. There's only downside to it. There you go. Number 2. Here's another phrase that's used quite a bit, but is actually a negative. Good buy. It was proven that when this phrase was added to a listing, it sold for less money. Simply these 2 words. Fascinating, isn't it? I mean, obviously this was a very thorough study over many, many years, and certainly there are extenuating circumstances, but this phrase right here doesn't help. Here's another one. This one's gonna perhaps surprise some of you. Vacant. This was negatively correlated with sales price. So adding the word vacant actually hurts your sales price at the end. Why? Well, again, these authors of this study don't know exactly why all of this is the way it is. They just studied it and figured out this is what would happen. So perhaps when people say the phrase vacant, they see desperate. They assume that you can offer less. That's important. So do you put the word vacant in your listing? No, you don't need to. They're going to figure that out anyways when they go to the house, right? So you don't need to add the word vacant to the actual listing description. All right, here's another one. This one I think is really exciting. Repairs. So let's say you are a real estate investor and you just fully rehabbed a house. Maybe you write on the thing major rehabs, or excuse me, major repairs, or recent repairs done to the property, and then maybe you list them. It was discovered that using the word repairs was correlated with a longer time on market and a lower sales price. However, if the phrase updated was used, it sold for more money. So the authors seem to think that perhaps the word repairs doesn't associate with improvement in the property, whereas the word updated does, or updates. So if you have repaired a house, do not call them repairs. Freshly updated might be a good way to phrase it. In fact, even describing that you did a major rehaul of the property may not be a positive way to communicate it, whereas freshly updated might be, or maybe not even saying anything at all, and just describing the home, as I'll talk about here in a moment, with a lot of emotion. Not even mentioning the fact you did a lot of work to it, but just mentioning how wonderful the home is. And let the pictures do the talking for you. Does that make sense? So don't use the word repairs. That's a bad one. Okay, and then this one right here, I've used before, before I read this study. Good location. Yeah. This was correlated or associated with the lower sales price as well. So, for whatever reason, using the phrase good location has a negative result. So, therefore, I guess because location is self-evident in real estate. I mean, the people looking for the house would know the location or they'd go and see it. So, what are these 5 tips really? They're tips on what not to add as far as listing description words in those remarks. And that is, don't put motivated seller, don't put good buy, don't put vacant property, don't put repairs, but add things like freshly updated, or maybe nothing at all there, and just let the pictures do the talking for you as far as how beautiful the home is, and don't put good location. All right, so that's what not to do, right? So what do you do? Okay, well, what you want to do in a listing description to maximize its power is to draw out emotion. You want to get emotion from reading it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read for you a listing description that pulls some emotion. Ready? And this, again, by the way, you can access this exact description in that link just below this box here. Okay, here we go. This cozy home is conveniently close to all the amenities of life. It has been lovingly maintained and cared for over the years. From the beautiful landscaping, to the spacious interior and generous rooms, to the recently updated kitchen, this lovely home is upscale urban at its best. Imagine yourself as the next caretaker of this charming cottage, evoking the style and quality of a bygone era. You are buying a lifestyle, not just a home. How's that for a description? Okay, so what did that description do? It drew out emotion. You know what it also did? It helped the reader visualize living in the property. And that's a big one. I mean, that's what we're trying to sell here, right? We're trying to sell a property where somebody could live in it. You know, there's an old phrase in marketing that says that people buy for emotional reasons and then they justify them logically. So you want to hit the emotional buttons, the visualization buttons. You know, just imagine living in your own personal paradise. You see how that is just, it's evoking emotion, it's helping visualize. So that means going beyond the features of a big kitchen and going into more of the benefits of a big kitchen, you know? Cook wonderful meals, you know, have your family home for the holidays in this warm and charming da-da-da-da. So this kind of phrasing is going to help the person visualize living in the property and help draw out emotion. And that makes a very big difference.
You know, he makes some excellent points. You know, before I was in real estate, I was a copywriter, and I used to write ad sales copy. We used to write ads, we used to write headlines, we used to test them, test the response rates of each. And I can tell you that in this short video, it's not enough time to explain all the techniques that are used to make people read and get them encouraged to buy homes. And you know, I noticed right away when I look at listings that whether or not they had any experience at all writing ad sales copy by just looking at the way the description was written. And oftentimes the assistant for the agent is writing that, or the agent has very little experience writing sales and ad copy, which happens a lot of the time, and that's the reason why many homes don't sell.